Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. It's Miscellaneous Gab, and we are back with another Severance rewatch. Season 1, Episode 6, entitled Hide and Seek. Now there's a lot of seeking going on in this episode. Not as much hiding, unless you count the very big things that are hiding, which is the truth about everything going on in Severance. You know the drill. I like to talk about the episode without major spoilers for the rest of Season 1 and Season 2, and then halfway through I analyze for what kinds of predictions we can either make for Season 3 or how we can reinterpret Season 2 with a closer look at this information. So if you're new around here, if you're making your way through Severance or a rewatch, go ahead and like this video, leave your comments below with your favorite part of this episode, and hit that subscribe button. By the way, this might be one of my last videos in this room because I'm moving soon and I'm hoping to set up a way better YouTube studio.
Torment through the rains. Progress.
So like I said, episode's called Hide and Seek, and interesting here because that's obviously a kid's game. These Severance employees, they're children that are growing up. They're starting to shed the rules of the world that they've constructed. When it comes to Mark, he's reading Rickon's book and starting to question everything, turning into a little bit of a rebel. Irving is at odds between his heart and his mind and his soul and maybe something else, and he's starting to even question the rules, the handbook, the protocol, and everything because he's feeling things. Mark is seeking answers. Meanwhile, Cobell and Grainer are seeking a person called Regabi, and everyone's just seeking. The MDR employees are seeking answers about what they do here. They're starting to ask the hard questions. And you know what I was thinking about? For those of you who have watched Silo, and I won't spoil anything major with Silo, but it's kind of like once you start asking these questions, or once some truth starts to get out, it's almost like a domino effect of even this very seemingly innocuous thing will lead to horrible rebellion or destruction. We've seen throughout history that asking why, or almost like that Adam and Eve seeking that knowledge, eating the forbidden fruit, is truly a domino effect of what can happen next. So we begin with Cobell wearing the chip that was in Peter Kilmer's brain. Remember the one that she physically cut out of his skull and brain? Her whole nightgown, lights, bed, it's giving psych ward chic. It's giving not of this time period. From the pigtails to whatever, whether Cobell is just a not very well adjusted adult or if her brain is set back 30 years. There's just something very weird about how this woman conducts herself. Grainer gives her a call and talks about how they trace the activity on Petey's chip to Regabi. Indicates that she must have cracked reintegration. We meet Regabi by the end of this episode. This is clearly somebody with whom they are familiar. Potentially this cracking of reintegration has been a process, or this Regabi has been trying to do it for a while. We can only guess and wonder what that exactly means. We also get our first look at Cobell's shrine to Kier. We see a photo of who appears to be a young Harmony at a Myrtle Egan School for Girls. We see a portrait of Kier, lots of mementos of the Four Tempers, quotes, etc., as well as a breathing tube with a hospital tag of the name Charlotte Cobell with a birth date. By the looks of the birth date and the name, this could be one of Harmony Cobell's relatives, mother, etc. The way she prays to this shrine clearly gets back to the idea of the corporate cult, the religious structure and hierarchy, and especially if Cobell has been around this since she was a young girl, we just see how deep it runs. Meanwhile, we're on episode 3 or 4 at this point of Mark playing hide and seek with Petey's phone. It's ringing, he keeps rummaging around, putting it away, and luckily by the end of this episode, the needle finally starts to move here and he answers it. We also get a shot of the Lumon water tower, and I don't know about you, but the camera really seemed to linger on this water tower. This is, of course, an reoccurring motif throughout season 1 and 2 of Severance. But if you're all caught up, go ahead and watch my video talking about what the actual Lumon logo droplet symbols. Irving and Bert's love affair continues. They're in some sort of secret greenhouse. Now I was wondering, like, are these just fake office plants, but they don't really know what that means because these people have never interacted with real plants or real foliage, or they've never seen a forest. Is this just where they keep like backup office plants, or are they there because they're being grown? Bert and Irving put their foreheads together. Irving says that he's not ready. I'll talk about this a little bit more in the analysis section, but it seems that Irving is really torn, like I said, between what he knows he's not supposed to be doing, which is this, and what he wants to do. Devin walks around with her fresh new baby and spots the woman named Gabby, who she met at the birthing retreat center. Remember, Gabby was in the more bougie cabin. Devin went over there to escape Rickon and asked for coffee. It seems like Gabby doesn't recognize her from the birth cabin. The woman in the birth cabin seemed to have an entirely different name picked out for the child. Now, does this mean Gabby is severed? And if so, does this mean that they're using severance for childbirth? Because if so, that is terrible. Meanwhile, we get deeper into Rickon's book. We hear a few more phrases which sound ridiculous to us, but are absolutely blowing Mark's mind. And I really think this book has been instrumental to Mark stepping in his role as a rebel leader. There's sort of this tug of war of, will he follow Miss Cobell and bow down to her when she's being scary and yelly, or will he rally his team, go outside, step outside of protocol, and explore what they want to explore? He even starts to speak in a more motivational manner when he's in O&D.
The Egan philosophy is illumination. Why are we down here still working in the dark?
With even Dylan saying,
That was poetic as shit, man.
Cobell gives us a singing performance when they come back after being retrieved by Milchick. It kind of takes Milchick a while to catch them. And in general, Miss Cobell is just more unhinged in this episode. She's just doing weird things all over the place. Mark goes to the break room as Miss Casey comes out. Remember, he offered to go in there for her, and then he eventually earns his own spot in the break room. She looks a little worse for wear with big bags under her eyes, making us wonder how long have they kept her in there. The transition immediately goes to Mark's Audi with marks on his hand, saying that it was just an accident. As usual, he probably found a note and a gift card on his windshield again. However, this reveals that Lumon doesn't only psychologically torture these employees, but also physically tortures them. As we recall on that news episode earlier in this season, when they talk about someone being impregnated down on the severed floor, it really sets the tone for a more sinister vibe with Lumon. Mark and the midwife Alexa talk about Gemma, how they almost had kids, they tried for a while, and then Mark kind of accepted that this wasn't really meant for them. One of the craziest and creepiest reveals in this episode is that Miss Cobell / Selvig is posing as a lactation consultant for Devin and Rickon. Alexa said she was going to recommend some lactation consultants. Did Alexa recommend Cobell, or how did Cobell know this couple was looking for a lactation consultant? It kind of opens up the door on things being even creepier in this world, with Lumon having this Big Brother 1984 style surveillance over the town. Mark and Alexa discuss this at a third-party location. So is she bugging everyone that Mark comes in contact with, or has Mark kind of in passing told Miss Cobell that his sister was having trouble latching, which doesn't really seem like, Mark doesn't seem like the kind of guy for small talk anyway. So drop your theories below on how Cobell found this out. As she holds the baby, we also hear her humming the Kier Chosen One Kier. Now, another big reveal in this episode is that Dylan is woken up in his closet. Innie Dylan wakes up. This is the first time we see an Innie being woken up on the outside. We'll learn what this is called and why in the next episode, but Milchick is in his home, has instructed his child to count to 1,000 while Milchick interrogates Innie Dylan about where he put the ideographic card. He says, if someone paid you to smuggle it out, which shows me that maybe this isn't the first time that this has happened. If you recall in the earlier episodes where we talk about Mark and Petey has that videotape of the break room, and it just makes you wonder how much has been smuggled out, how many people are paying people to smuggle smuggle things out. It must mean that they have betrayers on the inside, because if any Dylan was paid to smuggle it out, it would have had to be someone approaching his innie, which could only happen on the severed floor. So this sets up some really interesting indications and consequences for what Lumon is up against in terms of the opposition. After her lactation appointment, Grainer shows up at Harmony's house and goes, "What the fuck are you wearing?" Which I'm also very confused compared to Miss Blazer, Miss Blue Blazer, Gray Blazer, looking like a damn preschool teacher or a preschooler herself. He talks about how he got a call from a security guard at Gaines College and believes Regabi is there. He's going to check it out, but there's also maintenance being done at Lumon that evening. Mark finally answers PD's cell phone. The voice on the other line already knows who he is, and he finally wants to understand. The voice, who belongs to Regabi, asks to meet her now, which seems bold, knowing that Lumon is after her. They must be after her, and they must be watching Mark. That just seems like kind of a silly thing to do. We end the episode with Mark finally meeting up with this elusive Regabi, and I find this episode is so interesting because it shows that Innie Mark and Outie Mark are on a similar journey. Outie Mark is seeking answers, but Innie Mark is seeking answers as well. He wants to know why. What do they do? How many departments are there? And it just goes to show that the severance procedure is fallible, that questioning, the seeking, we get this idea that Mark has been just shut off for years, numbing himself with alcohol, maybe because there's less alcohol or there's less hangover and there's more inspiring words seeping into his consciousness, that both Innie and Outie are kind of on a parallel journey right now to seek out answers. All right, that is my review. I'm going to waltz on into the analysis. Please note that this will contain spoilers for season 2 and beyond. Friends, let's get into the analysis section of this video. I'm excited with the mention of Regabi and Cobell sharing a history. I know we've talked about this a lot. One of my predictions for season 3 is that they will meet up kind of begrudgingly on the same side, but that we'll get a little bit more detail about their shared history. They're both clearly geniuses and have been tangled up in Lumon for a while, for better or worse. So I really hope Regabi isn't going goodbye forever and she'll come back, and I can really just picture a scene of the two of them meeting up. Lumon seems to be able to find out everybody or everything, follow everyone everywhere, but can't find Regabi. So who else does she have on her side? How big is this resistance movement? I won't talk about this too much because I've talked about it a lot, but either way, I do think we'll get more of this in season 3. Bert and Irving scene, I'm sure you caught it. It parallels so beautifully the scene at the train station in season 2, episode 9. Irving says, "I'm ready." He repeats the words, "I'm ready, I'm ready." And I think in talking about Mark having this through line through his consciousness, I think that this shows just how love and affection and care, the heart is on a different level than the brain. Because obviously Outie Irving has no recollection of them putting their foreheads together and him saying, "I'm not ready," unless he does have some sort of reintegration going on, which at this point I don't necessarily think that he does. I just think that maybe this is the thing that they're testing for. Maybe this is Cold Harbor, right? Maybe this is the big thing that they're trying to do with Gemma, is brain and memories can be bifurcated. Can love, can the heart, can the soul, can emotion be bifurcated? I think I'm onto something there. One other interesting thing I wanted to bring up is that Irv creates more excuses to meet up with O and D. He talks about uniting the departments the way Kier intended, which is clearly the opposite of what Lumon wants. Lumon wants to keep them fractured and away from each other. Use Kier's words to justify their bonding, but I actually think this represents something deeper, which is this fracture between the Lumon of Kier and the Lumon of Jaime. And I think we've gotten hints from Dan Erickson in the past that there actually is some sort of fracture in the family where maybe the new version, kind of the Severance era of Lumon, is different from the Lumon that Kier created in his time and the vision that he had for his company. Mark says that he'll go to the break room for Miss Casey, and Cobell says very slowly, "She's just a wellness counselor, Mark." And my question is was Cobell the whole time trying to get Mark to fall in love with Miss Casey, and Helly was sort of this unintended side quest situation, because it seems like Cobell was never very happy about Helly becoming a ninny, about Helena undergoing the severance procedure and becoming Helly. I'm wondering if maybe not having any female members of the team and then bringing in Miss Casey with special one-on-one sessions was meant to see how she could recreate their bond, and then Helena / Helly was kind of this monkey wrench thrown into the plan. I never thought about it from that direction, but I think I'm onto something there too. We learned that O&D prints random objects, from hatchets to watering cans. Now, I think that we can agree that these are for the testing floor, correct? Unless the hatchets are also used for goat sacrifices, but it seems like they're doing that pretty clean with the bolt gun. I wonder if all the elements, all the objects within Lumon, just like the Lumon doors, must be developed from within, because they're that secretive and they are that confidential that they can't even get watering cans or other supplies from other vendors or distributors, that they have to be made in-house. What other uses do you think there are for the objects being created in O&D? We finally get a glimpse of the card, I guess I'll call them the Chikai Bardo cards that Dylan finds in O&D. These are the same cards that Gemma got sent in the mail, where she talks about Chikai Bardo, man fighting himself. We also know that Gemma is already on the testing floor at this time. So with this stack of cards, it makes me wonder, are they trying to lure other people to the testing floor? So what exactly do we think of these cards? And also, it seems like because they're enough to trigger Milchick doing the OTC, that they're very, very important, very confidential. And I wonder if we're going to see a whole other, an army of people on the testing floor that have been recruited to Lumon, and it's not just Gemma. What do you guys think? Let me know your theories on that in the comments. Another interesting conversation that happened is between Mark and Alexa. He talks about their journey, that they tried to have children for a little bit and kind of gave it up. He says this very casually, like he has this very accepting attitude in life. We saw the other side of that in Chikai Bardo with Gemma, about just how distraught she was. Now, it's understandable that maybe Mark wouldn't want to share this vulnerable of a story with someone he doesn't know very well, much less about his deceased ex-wife, but the way he spoke about it and the reality that we know of what happened seem completely different. We also get a glimpse of a goat head at Rickon and Devin's house when Cobell is there with their baby, pretending to be a lactation consultant. Now, I talked about this. How did she even know they needed one? This hints at an extra level, an extra layer of Lumon surveillance. There's this whole big symbolism of the goats. Obviously, throughout history and religion, they can represent the devil and satanic practices. We also know that the baby goats are used for sacrifices because they're seen as innocent and pure, and we just keep getting these goat motifs. So is this a hint that Rickon is further in deep with Lumon, or is perhaps a goat himself? Remember, he can climb the rocks pretty well. And then finally, everything comes full circle with Gans College. I wonder what kind of shut it down or took it from this vibrant place of study and life to the seemingly slightly abandoned place, or maybe it's just abandoned at night, that's become a stronghold for the resistance. Mark used to teach there. Ragavi says, I know. It just makes me wonder if education is dead in the town of Kier, PE. All right, that was episode 6. That's all I have for you today. Let me know what you thought of this episode. I enjoyed this one, and I know that season 7 or episode 7, 8, and 9, final third of the season, and things are really heat up a notch. Episode 7 is of course Defiant Jazz, so things are about to pop off, and I can't wait to review them. I'd love to give a special shout out to my Waffle Party VIP members. Thank you in particular to Marlon Yamzon, Dolores Abernathy, Daniel Ariano, Bo Dierker, Matt Winbury, Chris Bezeski, and Jim Rodney. And thank you to all of my other paid Patreon members. I will see you next time. Friendly reminder, you know what I'm going to say. Say it with me. Ready? Whatever you do, don't get severed. Stay safe out there. Bye.